There are moments in life when the mirror seems to tell one story, but your spirit quietly whispers another. Have you ever noticed that no matter how many storms you've survived, there is still something inside you that refuses to grow old? Not your appearance. Not the passing of years. Something much deeper. Something that continues to rise after disappointment, continues to believe after heartbreak, and continues to shine even when life has tried to dim its light. What if that inner strength is not an accident? What if it is one of the greatest gifts God has placed within those who continue to trust Him? Stay with this message until the very end, because what you're about to hear may completely change the way you see yourself. One insight connects directly to the title of this message, and many people overlook it because they're searching in the wrong place. Throughout history, God has often worked in ways that surprised everyone watching. When people expected weakness, He revealed strength. When people expected endings, He opened new beginnings. Time and again, He reminded His people that His power is not limited by human expectations. Perhaps you've been wondering why your hope hasn't disappeared, even after carrying burdens that would have discouraged many others. Maybe you've asked yourself why, despite everything you've faced, there is still a quiet determination inside you that refuses to surrender. That isn't something to ignore. The Bible repeatedly speaks about God renewing the strength of those who wait on Him. It reminds us that while our outward lives change with time, God continually renews the inner person. This isn't about pretending life never changes or claiming that time stops. It's about recognizing that God can continually refresh your heart, your purpose, your courage, and your joy. Some people mistake spiritual renewal for ordinary optimism. It isn't. Optimism depends on circumstances. Renewal depends on God's faithfulness. Think about the seasons you've already survived. The nights when no one knew how hard you prayed. The mornings when getting out of bed required more courage than anyone realized. The silent battles that never appeared on social media. The disappointments you carried without complaining. Yet somehow, here you are. Still standing. Still believing. Still searching for God's direction. That alone tells an incredible story. Many people expected your faith to fade. Instead, it became stronger. Many expected your kindness to disappear. Instead, you continued choosing grace. Many expected disappointment to define your future. Instead, God kept planting hope where fear wanted to grow. Perhaps that's why this message found you today. Not because everything is already perfect, but because God often reminds His people of what He is doing before they fully recognize it themselves. There is something remarkable about people who continue walking with God through every season. Their confidence becomes quieter. Their wisdom becomes deeper. Their peace becomes stronger. Their joy becomes less dependent on temporary victories. That kind of life doesn't happen overnight. It is shaped through trust. Maybe you've looked around and wondered why others seem exhausted by circumstances that somehow strengthen you instead. It doesn't mean your journey has been easier. It means your foundation has been different. A tree survives storms not because the wind is weaker, but because its roots reach deeper. The same can be true for your spiritual life. Every challenge became another opportunity for your roots to grow. Every unanswered question pushed you closer to prayer. Every delay taught patience. Every closed door redirected you toward something better. Looking back, can you see it? Moments that once felt confusing now reveal unexpected purpose. Conversations that once seemed ordinary now appear meaningful. People who walked away created space for healthier relationships. Opportunities you thought you lost prepared you for greater ones later. At the time, none of it made complete sense. Now the picture is becoming clearer. God has been shaping your character more than your comfort. That may be one of the greatest surprises of all. Our world constantly celebrates appearances. God begins with the heart. The world measures success by speed. God measures faithfulness over time. The world tells people to chase recognition. God invites people to pursue wisdom. When those priorities begin to change inside someone, an incredible transformation starts taking place. Not because they become perfect, but because they become anchored. Have you noticed how peaceful people often seem younger in spirit than those constantly consumed by anger, comparison, or bitterness? Peace has a remarkable way of refreshing the soul. Forgiveness lifts heavy burdens. Gratitude changes perspective. Hope keeps moving forward. These qualities don't erase life's realities, but they shape the way we live through them. Perhaps that's one reason Scripture repeatedly calls believers to renew their minds. God isn't merely interested in changing circumstances. He also transforms the way we see ourselves, others, and the future. Imagine waking up every morning believing that your greatest purpose is still ahead rather than behind. Imagine viewing every new day as another opportunity to grow, serve, learn, and encourage someone else. Imagine refusing to let disappointment become your identity. That perspective changes everything. Because when your hope is rooted in God, every sunrise becomes another reminder that His mercy is new again. Maybe someone listening today needed to hear exactly that. Maybe you've quietly wondered whether your best days are already over. Maybe you've questioned whether you've missed your opportunity. Maybe you've looked at your life and compared it with someone else's timeline. But God's plans have never depended on comparison. He writes every story differently. Some people bloom early. Others bloom later. Both can produce beautiful fruit. The important question isn't whether your journey looks like someone else's. The important question is whether you're continuing to walk faithfully with God today. Because faithful steps, repeated consistently over time, often lead to extraordinary destinations that no one could predict at the beginning. And there is another surprising truth that many overlook. Some of the greatest transformations happen so gradually that we fail to recognize them until we pause and reflect. One day you realize your fears no longer control you. One day you notice your reactions have become gentler. One day you discover you're encouraging others with lessons you once struggled to learn yourself. Those are signs of growth. Those are reminders that God is continually at work. And what comes next reveals why that inner renewal becomes one of the greatest testimonies a person can carry, because the people around you are beginning to notice changes you may not even see yourself. Sometimes the people around you recognize the change before you do. They cannot always explain it. They simply notice that your presence feels different. The same situations that once overwhelmed you no longer steal your peace so easily. Conversations that would have drained your energy now leave you calm. Problems that once seemed impossible are met with quiet confidence instead of panic. What happened? The answer is not that life suddenly became easy. The answer is that God has been quietly transforming the way you respond to life. This is one of the most overlooked miracles of spiritual growth. Many people expect God's greatest work to appear through dramatic moments that everyone can see. But very often, His greatest work happens inside the heart, where no camera can capture it and no audience can applaud it. That is where lasting change begins. You may not always notice it because you live with yourself every day. But someone who hasn't seen you in months may notice that your smile carries more peace. Your words carry more wisdom. Your reactions carry more patience. Your confidence no longer depends on proving yourself to everyone else. That is not weakness. That is maturity. That is the quiet confidence that grows when a person continues walking with God. Think back for a moment. Remember the version of yourself that constantly worried about tomorrow. Remember the nights when uncertainty kept you awake. Remember how easily criticism could discourage you. Now compare that version of yourself with who you are becoming. No, you are not perfect. No one is. But you are stronger. You are wiser. You are more patient. You have learned that some battles are not worth fighting. You have learned that not every opinion deserves your attention. You have learned that peace is often more valuable than being right. Those lessons are treasures. And treasures are rarely discovered without effort. This is why Scripture encourages believers to seek wisdom above worldly success. Success without wisdom can disappear overnight. Wisdom continues guiding you through every season. Perhaps someone listening today has been asking God for a visible sign. Maybe the sign you've been waiting for has been quietly growing inside you all along. Your ability to forgive. Your willingness to keep praying. Your decision to keep serving. Your courage to begin again after disappointment. These are not small things. These are evidence that God is still shaping your character. And character has a lasting impact far beyond a single moment of achievement. Imagine planting a tree. During the first months, very little seems to happen above the ground. Most of the growth takes place beneath the surface. The roots spread. The foundation strengthens. The tree prepares for seasons it has not yet experienced. People walking by may think nothing important is happening. But the gardener knows better. God works with His people in much the same way. There are seasons when it seems as though nothing is changing. Yet beneath the surface, faith is becoming stronger. Patience is becoming deeper. Compassion is becoming more genuine. Hope is becoming more resilient. One day, what has been developing quietly begins to produce visible fruit. That is why it is so important not to measure your journey only by immediate results. Some of God's greatest work requires time. A rushed foundation cannot support a lasting future. A hurried lesson is often forgotten. But lessons learned through faith remain with you for years. This is why some of the strongest people are not those who avoided hardship. They are the ones who allowed hardship to deepen their trust in God instead of hardening their hearts. That choice changes everything. Because every challenge offers two possible paths. One path leads toward bitterness. The other leads toward wisdom. The path you choose shapes the person you become. Perhaps that explains why you feel different today than you did years ago. Not because life became perfect, but because your perspective changed. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you began asking, "Lord, what can you teach me through this?" That single question has the power to transform an ordinary struggle into an extraordinary season of growth. And here is something remarkable. When people experience that kind of transformation, they often become a source of encouragement for others without even realizing it. Someone watches how calmly you respond during difficulty. Someone notices your kindness. Someone finds hope because they see your faith. Someone decides not to give up because your example reminds them that perseverance is possible. You may never know how many lives your quiet faith has influenced. But God sees every moment. Every encouraging word. Every unseen act of kindness. Every prayer whispered when no one else was listening. None of it is wasted. If this message has encouraged you so far, take a moment to like this video and subscribe so more people can discover messages of hope and faith. Someone you have never met may be waiting for exactly the encouragement you chose to share today. Now, let us continue. One of the greatest misunderstandings about spiritual renewal is believing that it removes every challenge. It doesn't. Instead, it prepares you to face challenges with greater wisdom and greater peace. Think about a lighthouse. The lighthouse does not stop the storm. It shines through it. Its purpose becomes most visible when the waves are highest and the skies are darkest. In many ways, your life can become like that. Not because you never experience hardship, but because your hope continues shining despite it. People begin asking questions. How do you stay so calm? Why do you still believe? How have you remained hopeful after everything you've faced? Those questions create opportunities to point toward God's faithfulness. Not through dramatic speeches, but through a life that quietly reflects His goodness. And there is one final insight that many people overlook. Every season of growth prepares you for responsibilities you cannot yet see. The patience you are learning today may help someone tomorrow. The wisdom you are gaining now may guide your family in the future. The compassion you have developed through your own struggles may become the very encouragement another person desperately needs. Nothing God teaches is wasted. Nothing surrendered to Him loses its value. Every lesson becomes part of the story He is writing through your life. And in the next part, we will explore why living with renewed hope changes not only your own future but also the lives of everyone your path touches, often in ways that are far greater than you ever imagined. Have you ever stopped to wonder why some people leave a room, and almost no one remembers they were there, while others walk in with quiet humility, speak with kindness, and somehow leave an impression that lasts for years? The difference is rarely found in appearance, wealth, or status. More often, it is found in the condition of the heart. When God renews a person's spirit day after day, that renewal begins to shape everything else. Their words become more thoughtful. Their decisions become wiser. Their presence becomes more peaceful. They carry a hope that circumstances cannot easily steal. That kind of renewal is not loud. It does not demand attention. Yet people notice it. They may not understand why they feel encouraged after talking with you. They may not be able to explain why your calmness brings comfort during uncertain moments. But deep inside, they recognize that something is different. And perhaps that difference has been growing in you for much longer than you realized. Think about the people God used throughout Scripture. Many of them were not chosen because they looked the strongest. They were chosen because their hearts were willing. David was still a shepherd when God saw a king. Moses doubted his own ability to speak, yet God used him to lead. Esther entered an uncertain season with courage and wisdom. Again and again, God looked beyond outward appearances and focused on the heart. That truth still matters today. Our world often encourages people to chase recognition before character. God teaches us to build character first. Because character can sustain what recognition cannot. Imagine receiving every opportunity you've ever hoped for without developing the wisdom to handle it. The blessing could quickly become a burden. But when God prepares the heart before expanding responsibility, He builds a foundation that can endure. Perhaps you have felt as though your journey has been slower than expected. Maybe you've watched others move ahead while you remained in what felt like an ordinary season. Yet ordinary seasons are often where extraordinary preparation happens. Seeds spend time hidden before they become trees. A craftsman shapes unseen details before revealing the finished work. A musician practices countless hours before stepping onto a stage. Preparation is rarely glamorous. But it is always valuable. The same is true in your spiritual walk. Every prayer offered in faith. Every act of forgiveness. Every choice to remain honest. Every decision to trust God even when answers seem delayed. These moments are shaping a life of lasting significance. You may not receive applause for them. You may not even notice their impact immediately. But heaven values faithfulness in ways the world often overlooks. Now consider this question. What if the greatest testimony you will ever have is not a single dramatic event, but the consistent way you choose to live each day? A person who remains kind when others become bitter. A person who remains hopeful when circumstances are uncertain. A person who continues serving, encouraging, and believing despite setbacks. Those choices speak loudly. People remember consistency. They remember integrity. They remember compassion. Long after impressive words have been forgotten. There is another surprising reality. Many people spend years trying to become someone else. God invites you to become the person He created you to be. Comparison steals joy because it shifts attention away from your own calling. Gratitude restores joy because it reminds you that God is still working in your own story. When you stop comparing chapters, you begin appreciating progress. You notice prayers that have already been answered. You recognize doors that opened unexpectedly. You remember moments when God's guidance became clear just when you needed it. Those memories strengthen faith for future seasons. Perhaps that's why Scripture so often encourages believers to remember God's faithfulness. Memory fuels hope. When you remember how God carried you through yesterday, it becomes easier to trust Him with tomorrow. Take a moment to reflect. Think of one challenge you believed would define your life forever. Now look back. You survived it. You learned from it. You grew through it. At the time, you probably couldn't imagine reaching this point. Yet here you are. Not because of your own strength alone, but because God continued giving you enough grace for each day. That is an incredible reminder. Grace is not only for extraordinary moments. It is for ordinary mornings. It is for difficult conversations. It is for unexpected setbacks. It is for every quiet decision to keep moving forward with faith. And here is something beautiful. As your heart continues to be renewed, your influence quietly expands. Not because you seek attention, but because people are drawn to genuine hope. Children learn from your example. Friends find encouragement in your words. Family members notice your patience. Even strangers may experience kindness that changes the direction of their day. Never underestimate the power of a faithful life. A single encouraging conversation can restore someone's confidence. A simple act of generosity can remind another person they are not forgotten. A quiet prayer can strengthen your own heart before you ever see the outcome. God often multiplies small acts of faithfulness into blessings far beyond what we can measure.